All right, hello and good morning. Welcome to the 2023 TWC Workforce Forum. You guys are in implementing flexible and innovative programs and practices for transitioning foster youth. The forum materials will be available on the TWC website. Please take a moment to silence all of your electronic devices. And if you guys get a call, please take it out in the hallway. If time permits, at the conclusion, there will be a Q&A period. Please raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone around so everybody on the recording can hear. If we don't have enough time to answer your questions, you may request presenter's contact information at the end of the session. You guys will also receive an electronic survey after the event. Please complete as your feedback is greatly appreciated. If the session is approved for CEU credit, which this one is, then you guys need to get that stamped at the end of the hallway. I think it's Phoenix South is where the table is located. Just a couple of other quick things. Parking, if you guys don't want to wait in line to get your ticket validated, you can pay for it at the front desk, and they'll validate that for you so you can get out a little more quickly today at the end of the sessions. And if you guys are registered at the hotel, there is no late checkout, so they wanted me to make sure I let you guys know that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Chris Caballero.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to do some introductions. My name is Chris Caballero, and I am the TWC Foster Youth Liaison. And we just actually had our conference a few weeks ago, the Foster Youth Conference that we have every year in April. Today, we're having Mr. Wayne Salter, Deputy Executive Commissioner of Access and Eligibility Services, and he's going to speak about the Texas Works Paths to Success program. This is a pilot program that is being done with the Transition Center, the Haile Center out of Houston. And then after Mr. Salter's presentation, Breanna Haile, she's the Deputy Director of the Haile Center. She will be doing a presentation as well. So welcome. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. As you said, I'm Wayne Salter, Deputy Executive Commissioner with the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, and I am glad to come to talk to you about a program that's near and dear to my heart. I do want to clarify, it's not a pilot program anymore. We piloted the first year, but we are in our expansion, so we've expanded it out to the Haile Foundation, and we're looking to expand it out to some other youth that are transitioning out. But yeah, so we're very proud. The team would, have a fit if I came back and said we're still in pilot. Well, some of the team are still here smiling. So definitely want to talk about this program. It's called the Texas Works Path to Success program. And it really is creating pathways to economic self-sufficiency for our youth, and not just our youth in foster care, but our youth across the state of Texas. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is the way that we, the goals that we have. I was looking for another slide, but I think I didn't put it in there. The goals that we have for our youth. So I tell this story probably more than I care to admit, but I was in DC attending a poverty summit many years ago, and one of the things that they were focusing on that time was generational and situational poverty. And so we were at a think tank, and they were, giving us some numbers, some statistics about the impacts of poverty. And, two of the things that stood out to me was what percentage of those individuals that they had identified were in the cycle of situational or generational poverty, had experienced homelessness, hunger, sexual abuse, drug use, physical abuse, mental abuse. And about 75 to 80% of those individuals indicated that they had experienced one or more of those different things. And then the next one that really just kind of took me aback was the survey that they asked that same population, rate your overall quality of life on a scale from 1 to 10. And about 75 to 85% of those individuals rated it, their overall quality of life, a 7.5 or above. And that was just problematic for me. I had a visible reaction Because in my mind, no one should be content with, being hungry, being homeless, being abused, subject to drug abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. And so being a think tank, we kind of dug into that. And what I shared with them was, I said, the data tells me that these young people have reconfigured their life based upon what has occurred as opposed to what should be happening. No one should be content with being homeless. No one should be content. If you were to ask me that question and I was hungry, even today, if I get hungry today and you ask me how I'm feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, 2. And my behavior is going to reflect that, right? After a while, it's going to go south because I need to eat, right? And so that kind of troubled me. And I'll be honest, as I tell some of the other groups, I went back to the hotel that night. I didn't go out to see the DC nightlife. I went back to the hotel that night and I scribbled on the hotel stationery. I don't know what happened to my notepad, but I didn't have it. But I had all these notes that I scribbled on the hotel stationery of what could we do or how could I come back to the state of Texas and impact youth. And one of the things I thought about in our line of work is that, we have over 300 eligibility offices across the state that we manage, and a lot of times we see parents come in our eligibility office to fill out a SNAP application for their children who are getting ready to graduate from high school, as opposed to a college application or as opposed to an application for employment. And so I started thinking, where do we make the biggest impact? And I thought about, high school students who are graduating. First of all, when you're involved with situational or generational poverty, if you even make it to graduation night, that's an accomplishment. But for those young people who actually make it to graduation night, that has got to be the scariest moment in their life, because they realize that after this night is over, adulthood actually kicks in. And they are now, in many cases, for a lot of our programs, they become liabilities to the families. And so we will shut benefits off. We will reduce SNAP benefits. And so a lot of these young people they are forced out of the home because they are now a liability. So I had this grand idea, stayed up all night scoping it out. I was very excited, flew back into Texas, met with the team of who I thought were dreamers, and they were. And I said, we're going to do this. And they just kind of looked at me exactly like that. You're going to do what? I was like, well, never mind. And so I called some of my federal partners. I said, hey, I want to do this, and this is what I want to do, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And they were like, you want to do what? And I was like, never mind. We got in contact with the Houston Independent School District, had a meeting with them. I said, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. What? Got in contact with Goodwill of Greater Houston. I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And they go, great, we can help. I was like, got one. And so we worked, I think, over the next 19 months, really developing a program that is very impactful to our young people. And I'll tell you about that. So again, this is a program that's near and dear to my heart. To see it come from scribble on a hotel stationery to actually changing the lives of the young people that the program is serving, it is absolutely phenomenal. We have 4 basic things that we're looking to do. We're looking to increase economic self-reliance. When you think about the power of being economically free, simply stated, to be able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, it's a beautiful thing. I told the story in the last session. I was young and I tried smoking. And my mom had a very non-traditional way of parenting, and her words were, if you can afford it, you can do it. I'm not a smoker today. If you can afford it, you can do it. So that took you really mean I can smoke as long as I can buy them? It's like, yeah. So housing stability, right? We know that our youth population sometimes are very transient, and that really makes a difference in the decisions that they make. I am very frustrated if I go into a hotel and DoubleTree is really great, right? But I've been in some not great hotels and it frustrates me. But think about people who don't even know where they're going to sleep from day to day, how frustrated their life and their existence must really be. We also want to increase educational advancement. There is power in learning. You get a great education, you can really be self-sufficient, as well as to increase their overall quality of life. There's nothing like being, again, self-sufficient, being able to do for yourself, that really is a great morale boost for our young people. So one of the things that we do, we took the guesswork out of the program, right? We designed the program. We were in our first year pilot. We had the Houston Independent School District. We had 3 of their high schools that were participating, and we had the Houston Can Academy. And we designed the program where it was for at-risk high school seniors, and we were on campus. Well, we were supposed to be on campus, but that little thing called COVID happened. We were rolling out in the year 2020, and it happened, but we designed the program to go along with their school day. So they didn't have to go home. As long as they went to school, got their grades, graduated from high school, graduated from our program, and it ran parallel with the school year, we had a job for them. The difference between us and what we really had to sell, to the community is like, there is no catch. We would go and explain. We had these massive town halls with the parents and the children, and everybody would say, well, what's the catch? There isn't a catch. If you graduate high school, graduate our program, which we're going to run parallel with your school day, it's going to be another class in your day. All you got to do is finish. Once you graduate, you have a job. You have a job. And so it was almost too good to be true, but we'd taken the guesswork out. And what I tried to explain to the community, in the city of Houston, I dedicated 100 positions to the initiative. I was like, I'm going to hire 100 people in Houston regardless. Doesn't matter. Like, I'm probably going to hire more than that. So why not strategically align our resources with people who need the help most? And as an organization, we're always telling people, go find work. We're referring them over to TWC. Go work, go work. And then on the opposite side, we're always saying, we need workers. We need people to come work for us. So it just kind of made sense to align both needs. So after someone successfully completes the program, we're offering them a competitive annual salary. One of the things that we did when we went into, the inner city of Houston, we looked at those areas that were below the federal poverty level. And we did an analysis of the average family income. And the average family income in those areas, for those, how many who are familiar with Houston, like the 5th Ward, the average family income, and that's for everybody working, was approximately, I think, $22,400, $22,500. That was everybody in the household working for that year. When we talk about competitive salaries for these young people, once they graduated the program at the time we implemented it, we brought those young people out making $29,500. They were already making more than anybody in their household. It actually put them approximately about 200% of the federal poverty level. So when we talk about one of our goals is mitigating situation and generational poverty, we were exactly doing that for every successful graduate. We also let them know that we had health care coverage. This is a major issue for our youth who are aging out of foster care, but also aging out of the home. When you turn 18 in a regular Medicaid case, if you don't have any children, your Medicaid is gonna end, right? And so what we presented to the youth is for those individuals who don't have children, don't have families, they're single individual, their health care is free with the state of Texas, full health care. We also talked about paid holidays, sick leave, and vacation time. It's a beautiful thing, and a lot of our young people, they work hourly jobs. There's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, working at, Burger King, but when you don't work, you don't get paid, and you don't necessarily have vacation. And to really explain to our young people, this is income stability, that you can literally be off and actually still get the same paycheck. I thought about our first cohort graduation, and I was speaking with one of the young gentlemen, and I kind of took out my calculator, and I showed him, I said, this is what your check is going to be. And he was like, I was like, well, it's going to be a little more than that, because I kind of factored insurance in. I was like, you have any kids? He was like, no. I was like, so you can add like another $560 a month to that. He was like, and I was like, what are you going to do with that? And he's like, I'm going to be honest. He said, I'm going to blow the entire first check. Right? I mean, again, this is more money than, most of our youth have seen, or more legal money than most of our youth have seen. And so I told him it was perfectly okay, blow your first check. And I was confident in saying that because for the last year, we had, in partnership with their school and Goodwill, had taught them financial literacy. And so they understood, the methods of saving and how to put something back. Retirement benefits. We also shared that, and I like to say this, fast money isn't long money. So sometimes people look and they want to get fast money, but fast money runs out. If you had a grandmother like mine, my grandmother used to say, anybody know about horses? So if they go fast, they don't go long. Y'all remember that saying? Or am I too country for y'all? All right. Never mind. So retirement is a really big thing. And to get some of our youth, I began to explain to them, 30 years down the line, you're going to be set up for life. You're going to be, and they was like, 30 years, that's a lifetime. I was like, blink and it'll be gone. I was like, so you really want to prepare yourself for longevity. Tuition reimbursement, we talked about the educational advancement. We do offer limited tuition reimbursement for our employees, but we realize that everybody's not going to go on to secondary education. It's just not for everybody. But, when you think about coming out of high school without a degree, and we did away with that requirement, without a degree, making $29,500 when we implemented this program, absolutely amazing. It was ironic. We actually had some of the teachers who were assistants that, y'all got position, can we come work with y'all? Sure, we'll take everybody. But you have to come in through the regular door. This door is exactly for at-risk youth. Career growth opportunities. Our organization is massive. We have several different pathways. We tell people, get in, figure out what you want to do, and then grow with the organization. One of the things I do want to note is that when we implemented the program, we were giving them, and I think I may have this on the next slide, we were giving those individuals $29,560 annually. We did a modification to our pay scale, and we upgraded those positions with the 25% increase. And so now we have our young people coming out. I think the new average salary is around $36,901 for their first 6 months. And after their first 6 months, we give them a 3.5% increase. And then once they get 12 months of tenure, we give them another 3.5% increase. I mean, this is a deal that you almost have to be, I just don't know if you don't take it. Like, we've just really made it very simple, and we've taken out all of the bureaucratic red tape for our young people to be successful. One of the things we wanted to show you guys is some of our stats of how we're really making a difference. Since we've implemented the program, we had 158 individuals go through that we introduced to the training, meaning that they showed some type of interest. They either signed a sign-up sheet, and we were in regular contact with them. We have 68 to this date, 68 program graduates. We have 53 of those program graduates actually start employment with Health and Human Services. This is really important. We had 13 of those individuals promote to a TWA. That means that those individuals, we hired them as a Texas Works Advisor 1. They reached their 12 months of tenure, and now they are a full-fledged eligibility worker. We also have 2 that recently promoted to a Texas Works Advisor 3, and this is like our assistant supervisor position. These young people are really helping to shape and mold the workforce. So you think about someone who was previously at risk, dealing with homelessness, dealing with hunger, dealing with all of those things that accompany poverty. Now they are up and coming leaders in our organization. I think we have a third one that's on the track to promote up now, and they are extremely excited. This really makes me feel good when we talk about increasing the overall quality of life. We had 7 graduates reported buying or upgrading a vehicle. That is absolutely amazing. I had lunch with them. I brought them all together and had lunch with them a couple of months ago. And one of the young ladies in the class said that she hadn't had a car. She was in our adult cohort, and she said she hadn't had a car since, I think, 2005, 2003. And she was able to go buy her a brand new car, which is absolutely amazing. Some of our other high school graduates were able to first go and purchase their first brand new car without the assistance of anybody else, solely based upon their merit. This was really touching. We had 5 of those graduates reported moving into their first apartment. When you talk about facilitating housing stability, again, these young people are able to take care of themselves, and it's absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that she's not here today, and maybe she will talk about her a little later, we have one of our individuals who was a part of the Haile Foundation graduation. And in one of the ceremonies, in their graduation ceremony, I attended ceremony, and the young people began to talk, about their experience in the program and how grateful they were about the program. And it was a very touching video. We shared that across the state, and typically there's not a dry eye in the room. But the young lady, she looked at me doing the video presentation, and she says, "I'm coming for your job." And, I was like, well, come get it. I'm not selfish. Come get it. Step up. Like, pull up. As the young people say, pull up, right? I am not selfish in that regard. But when I tell you that young lady, she was one of the individuals who also got their first apartment, also got her car. But I happened to visit some offices while I was there and didn't know that this young lady was at this office. But when I tell you she is one of the top producers in that particular location, and she graduated from the program that we partnered with the Haile Foundation to do. So these young people are doing exceptionally well. I couldn't be more proud of this program, more proud of the partnerships that we are forming, the prospective partnerships. We are definitely on a mission. As I shared with my team back in 2019, my desire is to do social services differently and really change the lives of the people. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Can y'all hear me okay? All right, I'm gonna pull up my slide. I intended to walk around. However, I decided to wear a pair of heels that I've never worn before today. So I'm gonna stay safely planted behind the podium. Let's see. Okay. I am Breanna Haile. I am the Deputy Director of the Region 6 Transition Center, the Haile Center, where we provide wraparound case management services to current and former foster youth. So we start working with youth at 14 years old, and we are able to work with them up until the day before their 26th birthday. And so today I'm going to be talking with you all about employment services, our collaboration with Health and Human Services Commission, and supportive services that we added to this program specific to the population of youth that we work with. So a little over 2 years ago, we had our first round of youth who were going to be rolling off of their housing vouchers. And so we got together as a team and said, okay, we have to figure out some type of employment opportunity for our youth to be able to maintain their housing. Our primary goal was for our youth to not become unstably housed because they were no longer able to access the housing vouchers through the various housing authorities. I always say that it had to be divine timing because around that same time is when Health and Human Services Commission reached out to us about their Texas Works Path to Success program. We already had experience with job training programs, so we had been implementing our summer jobs program for several years, I think maybe over 10 years at that point. But that was a program that was really catered to younger youth who were still in the foster care system. So starting at 16, maybe through 20, to really just introduce them to the workforce as they start that transition for when they age out of care. We have a full employment team who works with all of our youth, but we did not have a specific program that targeted our older youth. So this program aligned perfectly with what we were trying to do. It was offering our youth a guaranteed job, a desirable salary, and there was the opportunity for career growth. So, of course, when all of the folks got together and we decided, okay, this is something that we're going to try, we immediately went to our youth. So a part of the Haile Center culture is we incorporate youth voice into every decision that we make. And when I say that, I am not exaggerating too. The furniture that we buy to put in the center, I mean, anytime we are thinking of adding a program to the Haile Center, planning an event, we are always talking to our youth because all of these programs and events and things are always catered towards them. So the immediate feedback that we got from our youth is that the job training had to be paid. They were very clear about their concerns about going through job training programs in the past that were not paid, and the programs were presented as though the jobs were going to be guaranteed at the end, and when they finished the job training, that wasn't the case. Either there would only be limited positions available, or there wouldn't be positions at all. So they were very clear that they wanted a paid job training. They were also very clear about wanting the guaranteed job at the end. If they were going to commit to a job training for 7 weeks, they did not want there to be the option of them securing employment. They wanted it to be guaranteed. And of course, they wanted a desirable salary. So their feedback, along with the discussions that we had had with Health and Human Services Commission, next came the Haile Center really just coming up with the logistics of the program in order for us to pilot it. And that's another thing to make note of is at the Haile Center, we do not implement any programs without piloting it first, because you want to get all the kinks out, you want to make sure that it works. So we always start as a pilot. And because we knew that the financial support was going to be a major part of us implementing this program, we immediately went to Texas Workforce Commission. And so we have partnered with Texas Workforce Commission for several years. We've managed the TWC contract for several years. And so we took this opportunity to them and we let them know, look, we are going to ask for some additional funding so that we can give this pilot a try and see what happens with it. They were on board, which we were very surprised that the yes came so easily. We didn't have to do as much work as we were expecting to do, but they already had the history of the Haile Center with our summer jobs program and just other employment services. They knew we had the staff in place, and then of course the agency that we were partnering with. So they were able to give us $6,000 for our first pilot, where we were able to pay the youth $10 an hour, and they worked 20 hours a week for the 7 weeks. The other piece of financial support comes from the Haile Center Foundation. So it's important to note that the Haile Center is a private public. So the Haile Center itself is a program of Harris County in Houston. However, we also have a 501c3 that provides additional funding support for our needs that are not able to be met through the various grants and contracts that we manage. So with us being able to access the $6,000 from TWC, the Haile Center Foundation was there really if there just any additional financial needs came. We knew that we were going to use a temp agency, so this is something that we had implemented years ago with our summer jobs program. It reduces liability tremendously when you are onboarding young people. It gives them the opportunity to complete that onboarding process with a separate entity. And it also allows for drug testing, background checks, all of those things, because we try to get our youth used to what will be expected of them when they enter the workforce. The other piece that the temp agency assists with, of course, is making sure the youth are paid, but also we are working with youth who are in the foster care system, and so we have some youth who do not have bank accounts yet, and it could be due to the placement that they're in, where they are not able to have bank accounts, and so going through a temp agency allows for them to be able to give them like a prepaid card for them to be able to get their pay every week. They're even now able to pay them on Cash App, which is something very new to me, but we've had youth be able to access that. So it just allows for that creativity to make sure our youth are able to get paid. The other really important piece was the training location. So Health and Human Services Commission was very, candid with us about really wanting to set up the training location to mimic their work environment, which meant that we had to create dual monitors for our youth to be able to work on. Fortunately, we have access to a small computer lab at the main CPS building that's not even 5 minutes from our center. And so we were able to take some of our youth laptops, have IT come in and set up these stations for our youth to have this dual monitor workstation. And then incentives. So this is something that just in the history of us working with youth aging out of the foster care system, we know that our youth need incentives to stay motivated. Them just getting a paycheck is not enough. So we always have gift cards on hand. We've had people donate tickets to Astro games, to the rodeo. We had someone donate tickets to a celebrity softball game. So every week of the program, every Friday, our youth are getting some type of incentive, whether it's a $10 gift card or, a ticket to a sporting event. And these incentives are funded through the Haile Center Foundation. The other important thing, I can't even stress how important this piece of the program is, revolves around the supportive services. So as I mentioned, the Haile Center provides wraparound case management services for all of the youth that we work with, but we know how necessary the wraparound case management was going to be for our youth who were navigating through this program. One, we knew housing. So we are always working with youth who are transitioning out of their foster placements and trying to stabilize their independent living situations. And so for that, we have a housing continuum where we have housing case managers at the Haile Center who are working with our youth on navigating all of their housing needs. So whether that's working with the local housing authorities, whether it's setting up a lease agreement with a family member that you'll temporarily be staying with, or whether it is living independently and us helping you lease up into an apartment. Education, we have an education advocate case manager on staff, and they are assisting our youth with all of their educational needs. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the amazing educational benefits that youth aging out of the foster care system receive, but they have their tuition waiver and they're able to access their education training voucher. So essentially they are able to go to post-secondary education for free. And so our education advocate helps navigate them through that process. We also have mental health resources. So we have two therapists who work directly with transition age youth. And so we are able to connect our youth with them, whether they've aged out and they're trying to determine if they want to get back on meds, if they want to stop taking their meds, or if they just want to receive therapy services. We also provide Metro cards. A lot of our youth rely on public transportation in the Houston area, and so we always have bus cards on hand, and our youth are always eligible to receive those. If they are utilizing the bus to get to and from this training in particular, then they're getting those on a regular basis so that they're able to make it to class. And then work attire. So once our youth finish the training, we refer them to local agencies, so Houston Threads, Dress for Success, Career Gear. We make sure that we connect them with those agencies so that they are able to get the appropriate work attire. One thing that we have learned from our youth, especially our younger youth, is how important work attire is for them. When we first started our summer jobs program years ago, we didn't incorporate a shopping trip then until we got feedback from a youth that she was embarrassed to go to her job site because everyone else was dressed a certain way and she felt like she wasn't dressed appropriately. And so that was a time where we had dropped the ball, but we put in place that now every youth that participates in our summer jobs program, we also take them shopping so that they're able to get the appropriate work attire, and we've done that since. So we do the same with this program, making sure that our youth are able to show up on their first day of work and they feel comfortable and they feel like everyone else. And then we partner with Chase Bank to come in and do a financial literacy seminar with our youth because for almost every youth from the Haile Center that has participated in this job training, this is the most money that they've ever made. And so it is a huge adjustment for them One, because they are used to being paid either weekly or biweekly, and so they are going to have to adjust to being paid monthly, which that is a huge adjustment for anyone, let alone a 19 or 20-year-old. So we make sure that Chase Bank comes in, they have the youth bring their current budget, bring their current bills, and they go through what their new salary is going to be. And it's a shocker for some of the youth. They're sitting there with their mouth open like, oh my God, I have to make sure I pay all of these bills out of this one check. And we're like, yeah, this is why we're sitting down and we're doing this with you, because we don't want this to be a shocker when you get that first paycheck. But in addition to Chase coming in, our youth meet with their case managers at least on a quarterly basis, and a part of that meeting is always completing an updated budget. So their case managers are constantly working with them on their financial budget. So then once we got all that other stuff figured out, then it came time to figuring out who was going to be a part of that first pilot. And so here we talk about just what the ideal candidate, but I want to be very clear when I say ideal, we don't deny anyone access to the job training. However, they might have to wait for another cohort. And we say that because we want to make sure that they are in the best position to be able to successfully complete the job training. So one, it is an in-person interview where they're coming in and they're talking to their case managers there, our workforce advocate supervisor, and then another member of the Haile Center team. So usually they already know us, so it's not a scary interview, but we do tell them beforehand, their case manager calls and preps them, take this serious, because one thing about with Health and Human Services Commission, they're not re-interviewed. So once they complete this job training, they have the job. And so the Haile Center takes it very seriously that we are selecting youth who are serious about this. So we have them come in for the panel interview. And we are looking for youth who, of course, have previous job experience, but we're specifically looking for youth who have at least stayed on one job for at least 6 months. We are looking for youth who are able to show that they are committed to maintaining a job. And so we might have youth who are just entering the workforce that this might not be the program for them yet. But we'll continue to work with them so that they're able to build up to being on a job long term and then transitioning into a future cohort. We also are looking for youth who are stably housed. We know, just with the hierarchy of needs, you cannot focus on employment and school and all of these other things if you are not stably housed. We have seen it time and time again. Like I mentioned, we have a housing continuum. We have a housing program that we operate where we put youth in apartments. So we know what it looks like for our youth to be unstably housed and how that affects their employment. So if we have youth who are needing stable housing, then our housing team is working with them to get that stabilized, and then we talk about this program. And then, of course, access to reliable transportation. Like I mentioned, if we have youth who are relying on the public transportation, we make sure that they have Metro cards, and then we have several of our youth have their own vehicles, and we try to make sure that their vehicles are insured and, that they are on the roads legally. We even have youth, though, that if they don't have their own transportation and they are relying on a caregiver or a family member to transport them to and from training, we talk to that caregiver or whomever that person is that is agreeing. We have to have a conversation with them because we need them to understand what the expectation is, what the commitment is. And so we have a youth right now in our cohort, and her mom is taking her to and from every day. But we had a lengthy conversation with her about making sure that she was committed to getting up and fighting Houston traffic at 8 o'clock in the morning every day to get her to training. You'll say that in the beginning, and then you wake up that day and you're like, I don't feel like fighting this traffic. And then our youth, isn't in the class. So we have those serious conversations. And then the other thing that we talk to our youth at length about is that we ask each youth to commit to being employed with Health and Human Services for at least a year. We want them to be able to have a full year of full-time work experience on their resumes. And so that's a serious conversation that we have with them. They know that's the expectation. And so once we've had these conversations with our youth, and we've had some youth who come back and they're like, I don't think I'm ready for that, so maybe not. And then we'll have others who are like, yes, this is the opportunity that I've been looking for, sign me up. So that is really the end of our presentation. And, he talked about our youth, Bridget, and she is very serious. That was a very serious threat. She is really coming for his job. Every time I talk to her, she mentions it, that she is coming for his job. But we are so proud of her and all of our youth, really. We are now on our third cohort, and we have had, I believe, 9 youth complete the training, and we have 8 employed, who are still employed. Our first cohort just made a year, April 18th. So they've been employed for a year, and we had our second cohort. They started their employment March 27th, and then we currently have a cohort right now they should be in class now. They're going through training. So any questions?
Sorry, I came in a little bit late. So this starts at 16 or 18?
The TWPS program, it's 18, right? Yes. But the Haile Center works with youth starting at 14.
14, okay. So 14, and then when, is there like a maximum date for you, or age? Is it?
Yes, so we work with youth starting at 14 up until the day before their 26th birthday.
Wow, okay, great, thank you.
I was just wondering, how hard is it to get enough candidates that have that 6 months of employment at age 18 consistent, considering their circumstances? I guess that would be like my first question of 20.
Okay, so to answer that question, so it is difficult, primarily because in the Houston area, we have a lot of youth who are placed at residential treatment centers. And so oftentimes they are not able to go out and get a job like their peers would. So usually for youth who are in RTCs, their first job experience usually is our summer jobs program. And oftentimes what that looks like is us paying them to work at their facility. Because sometimes it's so difficult to get them transported to other businesses in the community and things like that. For this particular program, we have really catered to our older youth. So most of the youth who have been enrolled in this program have been over the age of 21. And these are youth who are either in the process of rolling off of housing vouchers, or might have maybe like a year or so left on their housing voucher. So we don't deny any of our younger youth, but usually the pool that we're looking at are the youth who are over 21, and they have more of that at least 6-month work experience.
And so I do want to add to what she's saying. So from a Health and Human Services standpoint, as we partner with individuals, we work with them with their criteria. So this is what this center has decided. They have this 6 months, but that's not, as we form additional partnerships, certainly we didn't have that requirement with HISD. So, for potential partners, we work with you to develop your criteria based upon the youth in your area. I think there's different complexions to the needs of the youth. So again, this is what works for them. We agreed to it because they know their youth in their area. So just kind of wanted to clarify that too.
Somebody back here.
Yeah, I want to ask, does work paid experience count as part of those 6 months you're counting? Some youth they have the opportunity of going through work paid experience in school, or they still summer earn and learn. If that's all the experience they have will that still count?
So I think I understood you ask what equals the 6 months of work experience?
Yes, the 6 months work experience.
Okay.
They probably have had the opportunity of going through work paid experience, or we call it paid work experience, PWE, or SEAL, this Summer Earn and Learn program. Will that still count as part of the 6 months experience?
Yes.
Or must it be a regular job?
So what the Haile Center is looking for is youth. We don't care what the job is, just as long as they have shown that they've worked on one job for at least 6 months. So
One job for 6 months?
one job. Yes, because the commitment here is that they work on a job for a full year. And so we know, for instance, we've had youth who have worked at the Haile Center, right? And say they'll work at the Haile Center for 3 months, and then they'll stop showing up to work, and they'll go work at another place for 4 months, and they stop working there. So those are youth that we would continue to work with on employment services, but we would ask that they stay on a job long-term in order for us to put them into this job training
That's
program.
a difficult criteria. Okay, and then this youth must be in the foster system.
For us, for the Haile Center, but not for their program. We just work with current and former foster youth.
Okay.
Anybody back here? Okay. You go, sir.
One last question. As far as funding goes for the program, is that like a WIOA fund? Is it some type of braided funding with the employer, or?
So the job training traditionally with Health and Human Services is not a paid job training. So we secure those funds separate from that partnership. So Texas Workforce Commission, who we manage the TWC contract with, they have funded all of our cohorts. I think. Yes, they funded all of the cohorts. But then if there are any additional financial needs, our foundation picks up the difference there.
So it's okay, is that WIOA youth funding that they're using?
Is it what?
Is it WIOA youth
TANF.
funding that
Yeah,
they're
it's
using for
TANF.
that?
It's
Or
TANF.
TANF? It's always, okay, okay.
There's one back there. There's a question back there.
Thank you.
How do you outreach to the youth to know about your organization and the benefits that you have for them?
So we operate, like I mentioned, the TWC contract, and we also operate the PAL contract. So the youth who are still in the foster care system, they are referred to us from DFPS. And then typically those youth just continue to work with us, or at that point they're just in our system. So majority of our youth over the age of 21 are youth that we've already been working with. However, there are, on occasion, we'll have youth who just stop in, or they are interacting with other youth who have aged out of the system, and so they'll tell them to come to the Haile Center. And so if those youth are not in our system, then we just research if they aged out of care, and we start working with them. Any other questions?
Hi, thank you all so much for your work. I'm new to the realm, but our workforce development board in El Paso has done some amazing work with youth and our foster centers, and a lot of aligning with what you have. A recent issue that I've seen, it's not necessarily an issue, but our business services team has been reaching out to local new businesses and franchises to try and get some of our at-risk youth into work-based learning. And it seems like there's always like well, but where are the youth coming from? It's kind of bridging still that unfortunate, stereotype and what have you. And so in those conversations, what are some ways that you guys kind of make that personal connection of giving them that opportunity and not having that hesitation, because we have had a lot of business growth, and so they're always saying we need work, and when we say, well, we have youth, and like, well, where are they coming from? And I feel like it's such a odd question. Like, we're working with them, we trust them, and we wouldn't ask you for the opportunity, you know, and it takes all of us to work with them. So what are some ways to bridge that?
You know, and that's a really good question, because there is a lot of reluctance, because there is this stigma, right, about working with youth aging out of the foster care system. I will say that for our summer jobs program in particular, and I mentioned that program because that is the program where we're out in the community and recruiting work sites and things like that. To be very frank, the biggest motivator is that we pay our youth's wages while they are participating in our summer jobs program. And so there's no financial cost to that employer. So that makes them far more willing to work with us. But also, we present the full package of the onboarding process for our youth. So we onboard them through a temp agency, so they know that every youth is going to go through a drug test and a background check. We do a complete onboarding session with our youth. So we have Workforce Solutions come in and train them on just entering the workforce, just basic job training, job readiness. We have financial literacy come in. So we educate the employers when we go out and we have those meetings on all of those things. The other way too, though, that has been super helpful for us is inviting different employers to events so that they are able to see our youth as just other kids. Like, come to our prom event and see our kids trying on prom dresses and learning how to tie a bow tie. You know, any events that we're having, we try to get the community involved as much as possible to humanize the youth that we're working with. So yeah, that I'm not sure if that helps, but that's that's what we've done.
I think, and from an employer, you know, we have some adults that we wonder, where did they come from? I mean, it's you know, you have to wonder, like, what happened there, right? So for us, you know, when I charged the team to reach out, you know, and look at, you know, former foster care youth, we are identifying people who are at risk. Mm-hmm. And we understand that there are issues associated with at risk, meaning, you know, they're not going to be your typical, you know, this is the only term I can think about. They're not going to be your typical pampered, well-polished individual. Like, they're going to be a little rough around the edges, and it's going to require a little bit more, you know, hand-holding to get them to where they need to be. So for us as an organization, we're coming in understanding what that risk is, because our overall goal is not just to not to get a product produced, but our goal is to change the life. And by changing the life, yes, we get a return on our investment because we're getting our work done, but that's not why we're entering into these agreements. We're entering into the agreements to give these young people a better shot at life. And so we understand that. So when we're looking at, you know, organizations who work with at-risk youth, you know, one of the things, and I'll just be honest, one of the things that we will not hire a person, you know, if they have committed fraud against a public assistance agency. That's too big of a risk. You know, we can't hire people to pass out something that they previously took. So, you know, we just won't do you'll never get me to agree to that. But, you know, but we work with the organizations to look at it. Just as we would do an adult who's had challenges in their back.